Well, today I'm picking up on a theme that I started recently with my Friday the 13th video, where I talked about how its state of legal paralysis is probably for the best considering the state of affairs in Hollywood right now. And I decided to extend that theme outward towards another one of my favorite franchises, this one from the world of television. And that, of course, would be XENA Warrior Princess, probably my favorite TV show of all time. And it's in a similar spot, with there's been this kind of debate around whether or not it should come back. There's no legal blockage or anything like that with XENA, but it just doesn't seem like they really know which way to go with it. But the common theme is that they want to go with some kind of a reboot, a recasting, a whole new presentation on the idea, mostly inspired by Game of Thrones, actually. And I'm here to just kind of give you a few outlines on why I think that this is probably not a good idea, and why sometimes it's best for old franchises to remain as they were. It's probably better just to re-release it rather than remake an entirely new version of the series. But let's take a look at why I feel this way. I think you might agree with some of my points. Now we're going to get quite a bit more in depth here than I did on the Friday the 13th video. That's because XENA is a much more multifaceted franchise that warrants a much more multifaceted approach. I do think it's important to immediately note that I don't necessarily think a XENA reboot is automatically going to be terrible, but the likelihood of it being good isn't particularly high. What I've read about the actual plans in place for the NBC reboot weren't encouraging in the slightest, and frankly it sounded like a disaster waiting to happen. Reboots of popular franchises have a built-in handicap that fresh new story concepts don't, just by way of being a reboot and not a new idea. The question of why a property is being rebooted at all comes to mind. The most common thing you'll hear from producers on reboot projects is, "We're updating it for a modern audience." Now, I think a number of commentators, most notably The Critical Drinker, have debunked the myth of the modern audience already, so I won't waste time taking that apart. There's really no reason why a younger audience of today can't just discover the original show in all of its campy, action-packed glory and fall in love with it the same way us older fans did back when. So long as the show is available, either by way of streaming, reruns on terrestrial television, or on physical media, it's still available to be enjoyed by anybody anytime they want to check it out. So there's really no need for a reboot. Of course, there was no need for a reboot of Lord of the Rings either, but that didn't stop Amazon from producing the disgraceful Rings of Power crap salad anyway. For fucking shame. Now, from what I can tell, the XENA reboot plan is currently on ice. The last news I can find on it was back in 2017 when NBC's planned reboot bit the dust. Thank fuck. Of course, this does not mean that the reboot monster won't rear its ugly head in XENA's direction again. Given the franchise's popularity, it only seems likely. So now feels like a good time to illustrate precisely why I, for one, don't think it's a good idea. Chapter 1. Background. The original series. For those who aren't familiar with the original series, I'll give you just a brief little rundown on it, but we're going to go through this assuming most viewers already know it pretty well. In 1994, Sam Raimi and Rob Tapert, who had previously found success by way of creating the Evil Dead franchise, began producing Hercules: The Legendary Journey, starring Kevin Sorbo, initially as a series of TV movies and later as an episodic television series. In the first season of Hercules, the character of XENA was introduced. Initially, the warrior princess was a wicked, warlording villainess who used seduction as a means to control men, converting them into her pawns, thus creating an army of marauding bastards who tore through ancient Greece, pillaging and plundering everything in sight. Hercules prevailed over XENA and went a step beyond by showing XENA the true ill of her ways. XENA's own army turned on her when they decided she'd gone soft, and XENA eventually had a profound change of heart. The fans ate it up and demanded more XENA. The producers knew they really had something, and rather than bring XENA back as a recurring character on Hercules, they decided to spin her off into her own show, and so, XENA Warrior Princess was born. It debuted in 1995 and had a highly successful 6-season run until its cancellation was announced in late 2000, and the final episode aired in the summer of 2001. Throughout the series, Xena's character evolved and developed a cast of supporting characters including her ever-popular gal pal Gabrielle, played by Renee O'Connor, as well as numerous recurring favorites, such as the goofy comic relief nitwit Joxer the Mighty, played by Ted Raimi, the villainous but no less popular war god Ares, played by the late Kevin Smith. No, not that Kevin Smith, the actor Kevin Smith, who sadly passed away in 2002. And of course, Autolycus, the King of Thieves, played by none other than perpetual fan favorite Bruce Campbell, and that's just to name a few. The excellent cast is a huge part of the show's enduring popularity. The show itself is pretty self-explanatory, all centered around Xena's exploits traversing the old world and getting mixed up into all sorts of chaotic battles against the likes of Amazons, Greek gods, warlords, fabled monsters, etc. Usually every episode featured a new adventure, with occasional story arcs spanning multiple episodes. What made it all work so well was the show's infectious blend of campy humor, thrilling action, sexy romance, and endearing characters. As great as the series was, it wasn't the kind of show that could last forever. Unlike your Mystery of the Week crime drama shows, for example, Xena's bombastic fantasy adventure formula had a shelf life. As early as Season 4, it was starting to show signs of creative fatigue with the emergence of obvious filler episodes and a gradual decline in freshness giving way to repetition. The show tried to combat this by having Xena and Gabrielle moving further and further into more outlandish territory. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. By the time we get to the final season, I believe, as I said in the intro, it was quite ready to be over. There's a lot of fun to be had in Season 6, make no mistake, but there's also a lot of evidence that the writers and producers were running out of ideas. Big time. There was a fan movement to keep it going, and I believe there was even a petition to get Season 7 produced, but to tell you the truth, I think a 7th season probably would have sucked. There just wasn't enough meat left on that bone, and for that reason I'd say the show ended right on schedule. Chapter 2: Post-Cancellation Blues and the Possible Xena Movie. So this wasn't a case like, for example, Firefly, where the show was undeniably canceled prematurely, and the fan movement justifiably demanded a continuation, resulting in the film Serenity, which aimed to bring the story to a more satisfying conclusion. Yet throughout the 2000s there was ongoing discussion surrounding a big-budget Hollywood-produced Xena movie. Lucy Lawless herself commented in interviews that she was down to return to the role if the project sounded enticing enough. But there wasn't a whole lot of information on what the film would actually be. Without getting into spoilers, the series ending calls into question what the film's narrative purpose would be, other than the obvious, more Xena. I don't know what the producers had in mind for the film version, and from the sound of things, they didn't either. And that's most likely why it ultimately never happened. Eventually everyone moved on to other things. Lucy Lawless herself moved on to other shows such as the Battlestar Galactica reboot, Spartacus Blood and Sand and its offshoots, Parks and Recreation, Salem, Ash vs. Evil Dead, hell yes, and most recently the murder mystery series My Life as Murder. As time wore on and we got further away from the original series, the tone of the conversation surrounding a new Xena project shifted from the movie project featuring the original cast, those surviving anyway, to a reboot series that would likely feature an entirely new cast. And in 2015, NBC announced that they were indeed developing a reboot series. Now it's time to get to the main point of this video. Chapter 3: The W Word. We should take this opportunity to address the plug-ugly rhinoceros in the room and get it out of our way. Now look, I know not everyone is comfortable discussing this. Hell, I'm uncomfortable with it. I don't want to make the central point of every video I make about woke this or current year that. I can't be the only one who's dog-tired of hearing about it, much less talking about it. But if you've been paying attention to contemporary pop culture in any of its manifestations, then you know that these days it's pretty well impossible to avoid, and if a Xena reboot were to happen now, it would almost certainly be subject to it. Mainstream entertainment has a disease, and we all know it. Now there are way too many examples to list, but the biggest and most egregious one is obviously Disney Star Wars. Beginning with Jar Jar Abrams' The Farce Awakens, Mickey Mouse has taken what is probably the biggest pop culture franchise of all time and reduced it to a tragic, unwatchable mess. With box office revenue declining from film to film, it was eventually relegated to television, where it saw the audience continue to dwindle until, at present, they're practically giving the shit away for free, and still nobody's watching it. Except for a few purely devoted fans who are holding on to hope that the franchise will eventually recover, and even they're fading. It's probably the single biggest pop culture catastrophe in history. And it was almost all because the producers prioritized pushing allegorical woke bullshit over treating the story and characters with the respect that fans demanded and deserved. The point here being that if they can do that to Star Wars, then they can do that to any franchise, including XENA. Over time, we've come to understand that this stems right from the very top of the corporate hierarchy, and it's all part of a strategy on the part of the corporate elite to change the culture completely. I won't go much further into conspiratorial territory because this video isn't about that, but virtually anything produced by the mainstream at this point is likely to be infected by the disease. Now, thankfully, I do believe the woke movement is in full decline, but considering how deeply rooted it's come to be in the corporate entertainment framework, it's a long way from being over, and it's not going down without a fight. So until then, here's what you can expect from a XENA reboot if it were to be made today. 1. XENA and Gabrielle would be lesbians. Now, one of the longest running fan debates has been the nature of XENA and Gabrielle's relationship. The original show kept this deliberately ambiguous. Both XENA and Gabrielle had several male love interests throughout the course of the series, but many fans have noted that the relationship between the two of them was, well, pretty comfortable to say the least. There were certainly a lot of suggestive moments, and while I think this was probably the work of the predominantly male writers fantasizing about the two of them being lovers, it eventually became a pretty major talking point in fan circles. And as the series progressed, the show's creators openly teased this aspect. They did seem to be awfully close, and, well, they did like to kiss each other. The most famous example being this scene from Season 2's Return of Callisto.
We'll see one another again soon.
See, that seems to me now weirdly out of character to visit. Oh no!
My God.
I was like, what happened?
I don't remember that. You know,
Xena slipped to the tongue.
where did that come
What's
from?
going on there?
What the?
Oh, this is
How
this,
could?
Okay. This
So now I understand. I get it now. I mean, what were we thinking? Of course.
I can't imagine why people thought there was subtext in this. Good God.
What the? God, that's so funny. That's obviously when we were just.
Xena's recruiting.
Now, for context, this is the scene where Gabrielle has just married her fiancé Perdiccas and expects to leave with him, thus ending her time with XENA. Now, that marriage didn't last long for reasons we don't need to get into now. There's a little hint in the title of the episode. But this kiss was essentially a goodbye kiss, though it can certainly be interpreted as a, hey, mama, I'll take you back if this doesn't work out sort of thing, and plenty of fans have done just that. Anyway, the point here is that fans could interpret their relationship however they wanted. If you wanted to believe that Xena and Gabrielle were muff-diving lesbians, then you could. But if you didn't see them that way, then you didn't have to. It sparked the aforementioned debates over the years, and that was one of the more fun aspects of being a Xena fan. But in the reboot version, it would not be debatable. Just for the sake of diversity alone, these two would be openly and completely gay. They'd probably be man-hating lesbians to boot, since misandry is such a common theme these days. If you think I'm kidding, then check this. One of the people working on the NBC reboot even confirmed in an interview that this was going to be a direction they were taking with it. So there wouldn't be any ambiguity at all. Hell, the showrunners would probably have them scissoring by the end of the first fucking episode. And anybody who wasn't down with it would be labeled a homophobic asshole. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. 2. They might also be race-swapped. Despite the fact that the original show was already pretty diverse when it came to race, with plenty of blacks and Asians and so on featured in the cast, the main cast was mostly white, and there's that damn checklist to consider. Never mind the fact that the show takes place in ancient Greece, where, sorry, but there just wasn't a whole lot of black folks. It actually didn't make a great deal of sense to have so many black actors in the original show, but nobody really cared in the 90s. Hell, it didn't make sense for so many of these ancient Greeks to be talking with New Zealand accents, but again, nobody minded. Now, though, they'd have to incorporate members of underrepresented groups, whatever that means, into the main cast, meaning that there's as good a chance as any that either Xena or Gabrielle or both could be race-swapped. And if not them, then certainly other principal characters would be. Now, you know what would happen here, don't you? Fans would complain that they were changing the characters too much, and then the showrunners would call them racist, and then there'd be a big fight about it, and then you have a big fucking mess. It would divide the fan base, and it would perpetuate the issue of racism in pop culture when it's completely unnecessary. If somebody wants to create a black character in the spirit of Xena, then fucking A, go for it. That might actually be really cool. But revisionism is never the way to go. Nobody wants a black Xena. Not because they're racist, but because Xena isn't black, okay? Write something new and leave the established characters alone. Making these kind of changes just doesn't accomplish anything except pushing an agenda that not everyone agrees with. It's not smart and it's not going to work. 3. The tone of the show would be all fucked up. And it almost doesn't matter which format it's released to, whether it was broadcast television or premium cable or streaming. You can almost guarantee that the show would be tonally inconsistent from the original in a few different ways. For starters, it seems like one reason modern producers wanted to revive Xena in the late 2010s was to compete with Game of Thrones. I remember reading an article back in 2016 where writer and producer Javier Grillo Marcuic was quoted comparing Xena to Game of Thrones' Brienne of Tarth. Quote, "It's hard for me in the post-Brienne of Tarth era to reconcile with the idea that Xena and her friends can meet every challenge in such skimpy outfits. I think we're going to have some very lengthy discussions about how to bring those elements into the present day without missing the boat on what makes Xena exactly what she is, and how to have our cake and eat it too." End quote. There's that present day thing again, just another way of saying that they wanted to modern audience the show, if you will. This has never not been totally stupid. Pardon my saying so, but if this guy really thought that copying Game of Thrones in a Xena reboot was the right way to go, then he's a fucking idiot. Why do they even want to be compared to Game of Thrones? Fuck Game of Thrones. It's a solid show and all, but apart from being in the same general fantasy adventure genre category, it has pretty much fuck all in common with Xena. So yeah, the sex appeal? Gone. The comedy elements? Gone. The quirky charm and cartoon sound effects? Bye-bye. If there's one thing that modern Hollywood is terrified of these days, it's humor. Because some members of the audience are profoundly uptight about absolutely everything, all manner of comedy has been watered down, overly sanitized, or done away with altogether in favor of nihilism and pretentious pseudo-realism. He also commented in the same interview that the series would be totally serialized, so no more Bad Guy of the Week episodes, no more let's just try this for one episode and see if the audience likes it type shows. Everything would have to be uniform and utterly consistent. Look, Xena Warrior Princess is many things, but at its heart it is and has always been a comedy. Sure, the show's tone could turn deadly serious when situations called for it, but it never took itself so seriously that it couldn't find a reason to throw in a laugh for comic relief. It's just the kind of show Xena always was. And I just cannot accept any version of Xena that wasn't replete with a goofy whoosh sound effect every time something moved quickly, including Xena's hair whenever she turned her head. I mean, right in the very first episode, Sins of the Past, Xena vaults upward on a wooden staff and defies gravity to spin around in circles, bicycle kicking dudes in the head while letting out her famous battle cry, which itself was cheesy as hell until you got into the show enough to fall in love with it. The tone of that first episode is fairly serious overall, but you still have funny scenes like Gabrielle talking her way out of being trapped in a cage by a dipshit Cyclops.
Thank the gods for dumb Cyclopses.
Now, of course, they can't do that because it'd be down-punching people of lesser intelligence or something. My point is, Xena is nothing like Game of Thrones, or anything else for that matter, and it should not be changed for the sake of imitating another popular show. Xena should be like Xena. Fucking period. Chapter 4. The problem with recasting Xena. Now that we got all that woke crap out of our way, we got to address the biggest issue with the proposed reboot. Simply put, there's just no way you can replace Lucy Lawless. And that goes for Renee O'Connor and the rest of the cast too, but Lucy Lawless most of all is so permanently affixed to the identity of Xena that trying to replace her in the role is just asking for trouble. Sometimes a beloved character can be recast without the fans automatically shitting all over it, such as Batman or James Bond for example, but other times the identity is just too strongly rooted in the actor's unique presentation that you'll just never get away with it. Take for example Jackie Earle Haley in the Nightmare on Elm Street remake. Now that remake was dreadful for a good many reasons, but probably the one people cite first and foremost was that Freddy just wasn't Freddy in that movie. Now, I don't think this is Jackie Earle Haley's fault. He's a fine actor, and he was definitely giving his best in that performance, but fans farted at it because it wasn't the Freddy Krueger that they knew. That's because Robert Englund brought so much of himself into the role that any other actor's interpretation was going to be off in some way or another. There was just no avoiding it. It was too nuanced, too identifiable right down to the facial expressions and body language. That's all Robert Englund, and even with Robert Englund's endorsement, Jackie Earle Haley never stood a chance. You don't have to look very far for an even better example. Lucy Lawless's own castmate Bruce Campbell. Can you imagine what had happened if the producers of the Evil Dead franchise actually tried to replace Bruce as Ash Williams? The fans would bury that film like evidence of a crime, and that's because recasting Ash would be a crime. So much of what made Ash a fan-favorite character is all in Bruce Campbell's performance. Nobody could do it better, period. Well, the same goes for Lucy Lawless. Now, I've said that XENA is probably my favorite show, but there's some close competition to be sure. I cannot say that about my favorite actress of all time because that's unquestionably Lucy Lawless, and the closest competition there isn't even very close. Lucy Lawless is one of the most versatile talents to ever appear on screen in my opinion. She has a huge arsenal of capabilities and has never, in my opinion, delivered anything that I didn't believe. How many actresses can be a comedian, action star, sex symbol, classically trained dramatic thespian, a renowned singer, dancer, Broadway star, and voice actress famed for having one of the sultriest voices in the business? Not very many, and dare I say I don't know of anyone who's done all that as well as Lucy Lawless. Oh, and at one point she did a lot of those things while massively pregnant and didn't seem to miss a step. So you can understand why the Hercules producers got ideas when she came on for a guest shot as the man-hating Lysia in the Hercules TV movie Hercules and the Amazon Women. Later, she played another Amazon character named Lila, but the producers knew that they really had something special with her as a potential leading lady. Though it wasn't sure just how this would manifest, it was clear that she was a megastar just waiting for the right role to really shine through. The role of XENA was originally offered to actress Vanessa Angel, but as fate would have it, Angel fell ill and couldn't do the part. That's when Lucy was brought in, asked to dye her naturally blonde hair black, and shoved into that iconic leather garb for what would become her career-defining role. You know the rest, but my point is, where do they expect to find someone today that can live up to that level of star? When the original was done by such a unique and supremely talented performer, trying to recreate that is like predicting a lightning strike. It never works out exactly the same way twice. Lucy Lawless as XENA happened more or less by accident, as is often the case with great creative inventions. And that set of circumstance wouldn't inform this new casting direction, and frankly, it's doubtful that anyone taking up the mantle would do as well with it for those reasons. So what this amounts to is that barring a stroke of pure undiluted luck, any actress hired to play the new version of XENA would almost automatically require a total character makeover. I don't speak for all XENA fans, but I'm fairly sure that nobody wants that. Nobody who really cares anyway. While I think Lucy Lawless still looks gorgeous today, she's not in her 20s anymore and probably doesn't want to play XENA just because of all the physicality and so forth that comes with it. I could be wrong, and I wouldn't dare doubt that she could do it if she wanted to, but it just strikes me as unlikely that she would. And as I just outlined, no Lucy equals not XENA. If they can't get it right, then it's best left alone. Chapter 5. We're better off without a XENA reboot, but there are other possibilities. So yeah, needless to say, a XENA reboot is nothing to look forward to, but this does not mean that fans of the series don't have anything to look forward to. As I mentioned in the Friday the 13th video, there's a whole world of potential when it comes to expanded universe possibilities. In XENA's case, there's already a wealth of comics and tie-in novels to explore, and there's really no reason that they couldn't just produce more of that. But there's one area that I think the real effort towards introducing a new audience to XENA could really take advantage of. See, XENA never had much luck in the way of video games over the years. You had the crappy PlayStation 1 game from 1999, which I will admit having an unironic affinity for, even if I'll be the first to admit it is crap. Those graphics were horrendous even by late 90s PS1 standards, and it's not exactly the monolithic standard bearer for quality gameplay either. That said, it is a pretty enjoyable little hack and slash romp for what it's worth. Then there's the Talisman of Fate on the N64, a god-awful fighting game made by Titus Interactive. Good lord, that grinning fox has been a symbol of quality over the years, hasn't it? Did Titus ever make a decent game? If they did, it certainly wasn't this one. Probably the less said about it, the better. There was also a PlayStation 2 game that got released in Europe, but since that one didn't come out here in America, I haven't played it and can't really comment on it. The reviews I've read weren't exactly positive, though. The most interesting thing about it is that it didn't come out until 2007, 6 years after the show ended and a solid year after the PlayStation 3 came out. So not exactly a great track record in the interactive space, but that's not necessarily anything that couldn't change in a big way now. Since this video has been referencing the Friday the 13th franchise since the introduction, why not bring it up one more time considering it's another franchise that had a bad track record with video games until recently? Gun Interactive published Friday the 13th The Game in 2017, and the game actually did pretty well, receiving positive reviews, and it sold over 1 million copies. Gun Interactive would follow that up just this year with the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, a title that hadn't seen a video game adaptation since the fucking Atari 2600. And that seems to be doing well, thus proving that games might actually be fertile ground for other pop culture franchises to find new life. Now imagine what they could do with a new XENA game in today's interactive realm. You know, I might just have to make an entire video about how badass that could actually be, but consider things like The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt or even Skyrim as a basis for the kind of game they could build upon. Then they could bring Lucy Lawless along with all the other surviving members of the original cast aboard, a la DuckTales Remastered, and really aim for the stars. Suffice it to say that if they do this correctly, as in keep it completely true to the original series, avoid any woke influence, make it as immersive as possible with the same attention to detail as provided by die-hard fans in much the same way the Friday the 13th game did, and they could really make something absolutely boss. Forget about merely introducing a modern audience to XENA with a reimagined version of the show. Why not rock their pants off with a killer gaming experience that will doubtlessly drive interest right back to the source material and probably kick off a whole new XENA love and renaissance? You can't tell me that ain't a good idea. And I know that the mainstream entertainment industry is allergic to good ideas these days, but it's still possible that something wickedly cool could burst through those walls and show them all how it's done. That's what XENA herself would do, and that's good enough reason to do just about anything. So yes, there is life in this franchise and this extraordinary character. Bad habits in the mainstream industry die hard, but legendary heroes and heroines like our favorite blue-eyed, leather-clad, chakram-flinging warrior babe die even harder. And they only stay dead until we need them to save the day once again. And shit, today sounds like a pretty good day to save. So once again, I just want to say that this is not me just being negative on the whole thing. I'd love to be wrong about this, to be honest. I'd love to see if they can actually pull it off. I mean, who wouldn't want to see more XENA Warrior Princess if they can actually do it right? I just don't know that I believe that they will. But at any rate, feel free to leave your comments there. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you in the next video. This is B-JOLT signing off once again. Cheers.